Pacifist runs are a hugely popular thing in the gaming industry. While most of the times it's much more convenient to just blast your way through games and kill whoever and whatever is in your path, being able to finish entire games without having to kill anyone that you don't absolutely have to brings about a certain joy and satisfaction, and even more so when the relevant mechanics are solid. A lot of games give you the option to go through them without having to kill anyone, but only some of them do it well. Here in this feature, we've compiled games that you can finish without having to kill anyone in the entire playthrough, and we believe these games do it rather well. Take a look at the list and tell us what you think in your comments below. Fallout 3. Fallout as a series has always been known for giving its players ample and fair opportunities to finish the game without having to kill anyone, and Fallout 3 is no different. Admittedly, the game's narrative tone means that there will be times when the story expects you to kill certain characters, but those situations aren't completely unavoidable, and with a lot of patience you can finish the entire game without killing a single character. There's also the fact that as compared to most other games in the genre, and some games in the same series as well, Fallout 3 gives players far more choices over how to play the game. Dishonored. Dishonored and its sequel is a game that actively pushes its players to try a pacifist run. The fewer people you kill throughout your playthrough, the better chance you'll have of achieving the perfect ending for the game. And not only does your playstyle affect the game's story, it also impacts the game's difficulty. The fewer people you kill, the fewer enemies you'll have to sneak around as the game progresses. Metal Gear Solid 4. Metal Gear Solid is the fact of the stealth genre, so it makes sense that a game from the series would make it into this list. And while Metal Gear games have always made it possible for players to do perfect pacifist runs, more or less, it was Metal Gear Solid 4 that allowed players to be able to complete the entire game without killing a single enemy, including bosses and characters that you were supposed to kill as per the story. Mark of the Ninja. Mark of the Ninja is a truly wonderful game, with some of the most challenging yet accessible stealth gameplay there is on offer in the industry. Crisp, neat visuals, and a vast array of options to achieve your objectives. One such way, however, is to be able to complete the entire game without ever having to kill anyone, and the game thankfully arms you with enough items and abilities for you to be able to do so. Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 is a wonderful, wonderful game, and probably the best Far Cry game there is to date. The entire 25 to 30 hour campaign is a blast, but there is a way to finish the game in just 15 minutes. And to do that, you don't even have to kill a single soul. Not even the person who's supposed to be the game's main antagonist. The main purpose of the protagonist in Far Cry 4 is to return his mother's ashes to Kyrat. In the beginning of the game, when Pagan Min asks you to wait for him to return, if that is what you actually end up doing, he comes back a short while later and allows you to spread your mother's ashes where she wanted it done, allowing you to finish the entire game without killing a single soul. It's a great storytelling tool that's used rather well and allows players to do a complete and very short pacifist run of the entire game. Mirror's Edge. Mirror's Edge is not necessarily a game that puts too much focus on gunplay, so going through the entire game and not using your firearm to kill anyone isn't a thing that's completely unheard of. You can finish the entire game just kicking and punching your enemies, while also making sure you don't do it in a manner that causes them to fall off roofs and buildings. Then again, it's not like the gunplay in Mirror's Edge is very good, so you wouldn't miss it anyway. Watch Dogs 2. This is a little surprising, considering the fact that Watch Dogs 2 is the kind of open-world sandbox game that seems to beg for GTA-style levels of wanton destruction. However, it is actually possible to finish Watch Dogs 2 without killing anyone. Using unique hacking methods and tools like cameras and drones to create distractions and remotely achieve objectives, it is possible for players to complete entire missions without using deadly force. What's hard though is not to run over countless civilians while driving around the map. Not impossible, but still pretty damn hard. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Deus Ex: Human Revolution was a game that allowed players to play how they wanted for the most part, but the game basically forces players to kill the boss characters. That, however, is not the case in its sequel, Mankind Divided, and you can complete the entire game without killing a single character, including the final and only boss. It was a major criticism in Human Revolution, and while Mankind Divided has a bunch of its own issues, at least it fixes this particular problem. Perfect Dark. This one is actually a surprise, because while Perfect Dark does contain a number of stealth sections, it is at its core a first-person shooter, and that's not the kind of game you'd expect to see on such a list. But that is why Perfect Dark is such a special game. It's not afraid to do its own thing. Back on topic though, in Perfect Dark, players have the ability to knock out and disarm enemies, and a combination of these two abilities allows players to do a perfect pacifist run. Silent Hill Downpour. Silent Hill Downpour is the kind of game that not only allows or promotes entire no-kill playthroughs, but actually demands them. It's mandatory for players to do a perfect pacifist run in the game if they want to achieve the perfect ending. It is admittedly often very hard to do that, given the extremely aggressive nature of some enemy units in the game, and a few mechanics in the game that unfortunately don't work very well. But it is entirely possible to do a perfect pacifist playthrough of Silent Hill Downpour. Undertale. Just like Dishonored, Undertale is a game that actively rewards you for not killing enemies. You get the best ending of the game if you complete it without killing anyone, and the worst one if you kill anyone and everyone you see. The game in fact calls you out on your actions if you do kill enemies, and the ability to spare people is one of the core concepts in the game. It is, after all, the friendly RPG where nobody has to die. Fire Emblem Thracia 776. Fire Emblem games do not usually care for people who like doing pacifist runs, but Thracia 776 is the one game in the series that does. It allows players to gain XP and level up and finish the game without having to kill anyone by giving them the ability to knock out enemies and then capture them. Once you capture enemies, in fact, you can even use their weapons and items. The Fire Emblem series may have lost several charms of Thracia 776 and its brethren in order to become more accessible, but this is one feature we wish to see again soon. Batman Arkham series. Given the fact that a strict no-killing policy is central to the character of Bruce Wayne or Batman, and in turn the entire franchise as a whole, it makes sense that these games would appear on the list. Last year's film Batman vs Superman taught us how much fans value Batman's no-kill rule, and while Arkham Knight, the final game in the trilogy, plays with that rule a little bit, it never actually technically breaks it. A pacifist run on all 3 Arkham games is possible. Actually, it's not just possible, it's a dead sure inevitability. Thief. Thief Dark Project was an incredible game, though it's aged a bit poorly. Its stealth and morality mechanics were and conceptually remain top-notch. Eschewing combat in favor of pure stealth gameplay, Thief punished players who decided to engage in combat by upping the difficulty, and by adding nuanced morality to every decision, added that much more weight to your decision to refrain from killing.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.